Hello everyone, welcome to my presentation, Defects-in-Depth, analyzing the integration of effective defenses against one-day exploits in Android kernels. As you maybe know, I'm Lukas Maar, I'm a PhD candidate of TU Graz, and my overall goal is still to improve system security. Defects-in-Depth is a large-scale analysis which consists basically of three parts. Two analyses where both yields in novel findings. The first, one-day exploitation analysis, determines the maximum reachable security by including mainline kernel defenses, while the second, the defense inclusion and effectiveness analysis, determines the actual reach security by vendor-specific kernels. For the first analysis, we start with a one-day exploit collection, where we then analyze the exploits, the technique used by these one-day exploits. Subsequently, we identify kernel defenses which mitigate these exploitation techniques, so mainline kernel defenses. For the second analysis, we also start by collecting Android kernels and storing them efficiently. Subsequently, we perform a defense analysis where we determine the inclusion and effectiveness of these mainline defenses in downstream Android Linux kernels. And the results are that the security that is actually reached is severely lacking behind of the maximum security which is actually reachable. We present four novel findings, where in this presentation I go into the first and the fourth, the widespread absence of included and effective defenses, and into factors potentially contributing to this situation. For the first analysis, for the one-day exploit collection, let's start by defining what a one-day exploit is. A one-day exploit exploits one-day vulnerabilities, which are known vulnerabilities for which a patch or mitigation is available. However, sadly, as prior work as well as Google Project Zero have shown that n days, so including 1 days, function as 0 days on Android due to long patching times. And these times can be as long as 1 to 1.5 years. Therefore, in this work, we analyze all 1 days that exploits memory safety vulnerabilities and targeting the Android Linux kernel between 2021 and 2023. The sources are from GitHub, from reports from Google Project Zero, and from Black Hat and others. For the exploit analysis, we define a one-day exploitation flow as a vulnerability-agnostic chain of exploitation techniques, where one technique elevates a primitive to a more powerful form. The overall goal for an exploitation flow is to use the capability of a vulnerability to obtain root privileges. By analyzing the one-day exploitation flows, allows us to have an independent analysis from the actual vulnerability, because there are a lot of vulnerability which grants similar capabilities in the initial state. One example of a one-day exploitation flow is, let's say a vulnerability grants you a use after free write of 1, 2, or 4 bytes. With the first exploitation techniques, we convert this primitive in a program counter control primitive, and the second techniques allows us to transform the program control primitive to an arbitrary read-write primitive, and therefore obtaining root privileges on Android kernels. We analyzed 26 one-day exploitation flows and identified 10 distinct exploitation techniques. The result of the analysis is, so here we see all 26 1 days, but one important thing of the table is that mainline defenses can mitigate all one-day exploitation flows except of 4, marked in light and dark red. So therefore, the maximum reachable security by including mainline defenses is 22 out of 26. So only 4 one-day exploitation flows are still susceptible if Android kernel includes all mainline defenses. With that knowledge, let's continue with the defense inclusion and effective analysis, where our goal is to determine the actual reached security by downstream Android Linux kernels. We collect kernels, also Android kernels, from 10 different vendors, including Samsung, Huawei, Oppo, so the top 7 of the which has the largest market share, as well as 3 well-recognized vendors, including Google, OnePlus, and Fairphone. All these 10 vendors released about 1,700 devices between 2018 and 2023, where we successfully extracted about 1,000 device kernels. Why only 1,000 out of 1,700? Because for a lot of devices, the firmware wasn't available. And for a small fraction, there was an error in the extraction. For the defense analysis, we first start with a source code analysis, where we manually analyze all kernel defenses, including mainline kernel defenses, as well as custom kernel defenses, because some vendors include also custom defenses, to determine their effectiveness. We then perform an automated kernel binary analysis to determine the inclusion of these defenses in the kernel binary. We decide that a defense is integrated if crucial functions or crucial routines are included or are compiled within the kernel binary, where our paper provides more details of this procedure. With both analyses being done, let's continue with the novel findings. So the first novel finding is that the level of security reached is severely lagging behind between the actual reached security and the maximum reachable security. Here's a figure of the susceptibility of one-day exploitation flows as a function of all devices. With point 1, we see that 281 devices are susceptible to all 26 one-day exploitation flows, where point 2 indicates that 913 devices are susceptible to 10 or more exploitation flows. By averaging all the one-day exploitation flows for all devices, we come to a metric 15.2. So when considering the maximum security was 4 still susceptible, now the average overall is 15.2, which is significantly lagging behind. We then perform a more fine-grained analysis by separating per vendor. On the bottom, also on the top left, we see that ground truth, the maximum security. Then Google with the best score of 11.8, Samsung with the vendor of the top of the largest market share, and Fairphone with the worst susceptible score of all. What we did next, we wrote Google, or we presented Google our findings. Let's continue with the factors potentially contributing to this situation. The first, our analysis showed that there's a strong correlation between older kernels and more susceptibility. This is obvious because older kernels might have doesn't support kernel defenses, while newer kernels does. So therefore, the first factor is the use of older kernels. However, we also found out that the well-configured Android Linux kernel 3.10, so for reference, that kernel version is 10 years old, provides more security than 38% of all vendor-supplied kernels. Therefore, the second potential factor is a lack of importance regarding the security relevant features. We presented Google with both findings, and Google responded with implementing certain security mitigations can lead to significant performance costs. They said, an example, the config debug list, that specific defense would prevent 9 out of the 26 one-day exploitation flows, but however, as several vendors complained of performance hits, they removed the enforcement of including this defense. Google also responded with, however, considering the fact that the majority of Android devices are low-end devices, it's generally not possible to apply all mitigations due to performance reasons. We also wrote to Samsung, basically we wrote to everyone, but Samsung responded with their custom defense, the LKB, that they also included not for all devices because of limited performance, similar to Huawei with their custom defense also said, yeah, only for specific devices. And this, so we had the last evaluation idea to see whether there's a difference between low-end and high-end devices. So we did a susceptibility analysis where we analyzed from the same version low-end and high-end devices, and we found out that there's a 23.8 susceptibility gap between high-end and low-end devices. This brings me to the third and last potential factor, the performance cost, especially for less powerful low-end devices. With that, I'm finished with my presentation. Let's conclude everything. That in the paper we analyzed 26 one-days targeting the Android kernel. We identified defenses mitigating most of these one-days. We performed a defense inclusion and effectiveness analysis, and we presented these 4 novel findings. Now I'm finished. Thanks for your attention.